Naran, which was even of Hislavshus, Nefesh Ruach Neshama, that's what Naran is, right? Being Ovid Milamata Lamaila through Seichel, convincing the Nefesh Abahamis that Elokus is good. It was that level. Then there's the level of Chaya Shebenefesh, the revelation from above, and that we were calling inspiration. And the third level is the level of Yechida Shebenefesh, and that's the ultimate Pada B'Shalom. That's what the Rabbi said in the first three ICS. And the third level, the level of Yechida Shebenefesh, the Rabbi, the Chiddush of the Maimer is that level of revelation is not necessarily revealing Yechida Shebenefesh ad kedei kach that the person is in a state of unbelievable Mesiras Nefesh, etc. But rather simply read the words. It's always a good idea to read the words and read the actual words of the Rebbe. Right? It's only one line, so it won't take us long. The Rebbe's words were Al Yedei HaMachshava Be'inyan HaYechida, through thoughts of matters of the Yechida, meaning thinking about the fact that that you have a Yechida Shebenefesh, meaning there's an aspect of you, and not only an aspect, the essential aspect of you, who you really are, which is essentially connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the resolution that his behavior Tieh Behetim Lebechinas HaYechida Shebenefesh will be in line with Yechida Shebenefesh. That he's Beinanus, that contemplation will bring a person to a state of Yechida. Again, not a complete and total Gilu of Yechida, but simply an appreciation of the fact that that's who we are. And that will bring about Pada B'Shalom, Rabbi says, right? Pedias Nafshe Elokis Miha Milchomis the Nefesh Abahamis. Therefore, the redemption of the Nefesh Elokis from the Milchomis of the Nefesh Abahamis, Hiba even the Shalom, will be in a peaceful way, calm way. A person doesn't have to scrunch up his face and look like he's in pain when he's dealing with godliness, because it's an expression of who he really is, right? How did we come to that understanding? By virtue of the apparent contradiction in the pasuk. Pada b'sholem nafshi mikravli. Well, if it's a krav, so then what's the sholem? Well, if there's a battle, then what's the sholem? Especially when the end of the pasuk Yibarabim Hayu Imadi is a revelation of Yechida Shebenefesh, right? So then what's the krav? There shouldn't be a krav if there's a revelation of Yechida Shebenefesh. As I've explained, this is a person who still has a Yitzhahara, still has Nefesh Abahamis, still thinks about Inyani Gashmi, still connected to these things, and yet still just the machshava regarding Yechida Shebenefesh can bring about Padiyah B'Shalom. That's the first part of the Maimer. The middle of the Maimer, which is explained by the end of the Maimer. The middle of the Maimer, the Rebbe explains two levels of Shalom. Pada B'Shalom, V'shavti B'Shalom, Beis Shalom, Shalom ilamayla lamata, Shalom ilamata lamayla. Shalom from above, Shalom from below. The revelation of from above, which brings about a bittul of the reality below. So therefore, that's a very powerful tool to bring about the behavior that a person would want, but it's only temporary because it doesn't change the below. It's mevatel it temporarily, right? Times the marshal, obviously, times of inspiration. Times of inspiration, so I don't have a yitzhara for all the shtus. I'm inspired. Okay, but that doesn't mean it hasn't gone away. It's just waiting for the inspiration to disappear, and then it'll come back in full force. All right, Meitzi Shabbos. So that level has an advantage, bittul. The disadvantage, it doesn't bring about a change in the Nefesh Abahamis itself. It's not internal. Right? It's not part of my conscious reality. It just affects my conscious reality temporarily. Let me see if this coffee will help.
Oh man.
Coffee will help something. Whether or not it's going to help that bug in my throat, I don't know, but it'll definitely help something. Hopefully by the time I finish drinking it, you won't come up to me and say, I think you need another cup of coffee. So the advantage of the or above, bittul. But there's also a sholem, and this itself was a question. Sholem and mitzad the aveda milamata l'mayla, the aveda below. What's that? That's the hislavshus of the nefesh elokis and the nefesh bahamis, the direct encounter of the nefesh bahamis, not being mavatal by virtue of some incredible lofty light or inspiration that encompasses me, but rather dealing with it day by day, educating the nefesh bahamis to appreciate elokus. Right? So it does. It can come to the appreciation of elokus, but that doesn't mean that it's lost its connection to the shtus of Eilam Hazeh. It might still be connected to the shtus of Eilam Hazeh. That doesn't mean that it isn't interested, isn't the words the Rabbi used, maskim, it doesn't ultimately agree with the position of the Nefesh Elokis. But it's still, its nature hasn't changed. The advantage from above, temporarily, the nature of the Nefesh Bahamis changes, it's bottled. Right? The advantage of below, and a certain internalization of this realization that Elokus is good, so the Nefesh Bahamis changes, not its nature, but its behavior. Okay? Pada b'sholem, the Rebbe said, is the synthesis of both of them. So they'll have the advantage of the revelation from above and the advantage of the revelation from below, and that'll help us understand why even the revelation from below, even the Aveda from below, it's not so much a revelation from below, the Aveda from below, the Aveda of, again, hislavshus of the Nefesh Elokis, the Nefesh Bahamis, directly encountering the Nefesh Bahamis and convincing it that Elokus is good, Talmudu ki tov havayo, taste and see as the Eibishter is good, that Aveda will also be b'sholem. How can that be b'sholem? That's a melchama. That'll be b'sholem because ultimately the Rebbe says there'll be a synthesis of these two different levels of sholem. The advantages of the level from above will also be found in the Aveda from below, and the advantages of the Aveda from below, the internalization of it, will also be found in the revelation from above. That's the middle of the Maimer. In order to show us that clearly, the Rebbe brings the Frierdiker Rebbe's Maimer v'chol b'nayich, that the Frierdiker Rebbe said twice, once the Shabbos before the Rebbe's Chasna, meaning the Ufruf of the Rebbe, and then the night before the Chasna, the Rebbe said the Maimer in Tamchi Tamimim in Varsha. Right? Okay? And the Rebbe brings that Maimer in the middle of this Maimer in order to show us, it's very clear from the Frierdiker Rebbe that the Frierdiker Rebbe is talking about a situation where both levels of Sholem contain the advantages of each. Right? That's why the Rebbe brought the Frierdiker Rebbe. So that's basically Dalet Hey Vav Zayin, the middle of the Maimer. In Ches and Tes, the Rebbe explains Al Pi Seichel why it is that both levels of Aveda have the advantage of each. And the Rebbe talks about the fact that the Nitzotzes themselves, the Lamata itself, wants to be elevated. The world wants to be elevated. It's true. Ultimately, where does it come from? It comes from Elokus. So the world's true desire is to be elevated, right? The mashal in the Alter Rebbe is what? We've talked about it before. I'm sorry for such a mashal, but it's the Alter Rebbe, so none of us have to be firmer than the Alter Rebbe. Don't worry, you're okay. Right? The mashal of it's from the Zohar. The mashal of the king who sends the prince to the house of the harlot with money around his neck. The harlot's job is to seduce the prince, and she does that with all of her powers, but her true desire is that the prince should not be seduced. She loves the prince and wants the prince to be the prince. Doesn't want him to fall into the schmutz of her life. She wants the prince to be the prince. But she has to do everything she can to seduce the prince. So too Eilam Hazeh. Eilam Hazeh mitzad itself seems to be a place of tremendous helim, but ultimately it's a place of unbelievable godliness. The desire of of created reality is to be elevated back to its source in Elokus. So then the Rebbe said an amazing thing. It's the end of the Maimer, and the Rebbe says an amazing thing. By virtue of revealing Yechida Shebenefesh, Yechida Shebenefesh is that place in you and I where we appreciate that everything is connected to the Eibishter in an essential way. That affects, if we deal with the world from that perspective, again, not that we're Rav Mendel and we're completely bottled and there's no Nefesh Bahamis, there is Nefesh Bahamis, but it's quiet and docile. No. have an nefesh bahamis, and then there's taivus ve'elam hazeh, and yet still the person thinks when he's doing his avodah, he's learning his Torah, or doing his mitzvahs, or dealing with other people, whatever he's doing, he's thinking that his essential being is elokus, and he wants to express that through his behavior. That understanding in his mayach brings about a revelation of the true essence of physical reality, and physical reality is elevated b'sholem, calmly, without a battle. That's basically the end of the mimer, which is really an astounding idea. Okay, so those are basically the three parts of the mimer of Pada b'Sholem, right? And all of that brings about the yichud of Kuch B'Rich Shvinte, which is the yichud of Sefer Mamali Beifin Shel Sholem, calm. And that's the Rebbe's derech and avodah. We don't have to look like we're in pain. That's for Eliyahu. You got yesterday, no? You didn't.
I don't think so.
Didn't I give out yesterday? I did.
Yeah.
Anyway, I did. Doesn't matter. Right? Doesn't matter. Okay, fine. Hanukkah. We zipped under the wire. We're starting a Hanukkah mimer a few hours before Hanukkah. Right? We got 4:40 is licht. So we've got 8 hours. We did okay. 9 hours.
You could finish it in 8 hours.
I don't. Well, if we sat here the whole time, we definitely would. But I don't think that's what we're allowed to do. We'll see. Tanu Rabbanan. This is a Gemara that a number of you have just finished learning. Tanu Rabbanan, mitzvahs ner Chanukah. Gemara in Shabbos, which asks my Chanukah. It's the line before this. What's Chanukah? The Gemara asks. It's in the second parak of Shabbos, which is B'mei Madlikim, which is the parak that talks about Shabbos Licht. In that context, the Gemara talks about Chanukah. Obvious connection. Candles. So what's Chanukah? Mitzvahs ner Chanukah. So we know there are three different. It's not 3 different shittas, 3 different levels of fulfilling the mitzvah of ner Chanukah. One is ner ishu beis, 1 candle per house. Right? Every night you light 1 candle. Right? Mahadran, ner l'kol echad ve'echad. A candle for every single person in the house. Meaning every night, every person in the house lights 1 candle. Now you would assume every person in the house means everybody above bar mitzvah. Lights 1 candle. Right? Mahadran. Mina Mahadran is a machlekes beis Hillel beis Shammai. Beis Shammai says you go from 8 to 1. Beis Hillel says you go from 1 to 8. Machlekes Rishonim, whether or not that means everybody lights 1 or only 1 person lights 1, meaning is Mahadran, Mina Mahadran. 2 direct steps up from their Ishu Beisai, 1 menorah per house, but it goes 1 through 8, or 8 through 1, let's stop 1 through 8, 1 through 8. That's one Shita, right? That's Tosfos on the page. The other Shita is the Rambam. The Rambam says, no, it's Ner Ishu Beisai, that's 1 candle per house. Everybody lights 1, everybody lights 1 through 8. It's a step up from Mahadran. Mahadran is a 1 step up from Mahadran. As opposed to Tosfos says, no, Mahadran is 2 steps up from the simple pshat, the simple performance of the mitzvah, which is Ner Ishu Beisai. It happens to be interesting. I'm boring 2 people in the class because they saw it in Gemara, but that's all right. Maybe they forgot. But it happens to be very, very interesting in Shulchan Aruch. This is one of the few places in Shulchan Aruch you'll find Shulchan Aruch paskins like Tosfos and the Ramah paskins like the Rambam. They switch. The Rambam, the Sfardi, is the shorish of Ashkenazi halacha, and Tosfos, the Ashkenazi, is the shorish of Sfardi halacha. Right? Sfardim light like Tosfos, 1 menorah per house. Basically, I mean, there's always different minhagim, right? But basically, that's Sfardi psak. Ashkenazi psak is all boys above bar mitzvah light a menorah. Right? That's Rambam, based on ner kol echad vechad, the Mahadran position. But it's just simple pshat in the Gemara. Is Mahadran min Mahadran a step up from Mahadran? Or is it 2 steps up from the simple pshat, the simple expression of the mitzvah? Which means, and this is very, very important because if you never learned the Gemara, never learned Hilchos Chanukah, you really wouldn't know this, right? That means if you're stuck somewhere and you only have 1 candle on the 5th night, that's the basic mitzvah anyway. The basic mitzvah is to light 1 candle every night, right? It's not that it's not a kula. That's the mitzvah. right? It just happens to be, and the Rabbi talks about this in many sikhs, that the Hanukkah is the only halacha in Shulchan Aruch that everybody does mahadran min mahadran. The basic halacha is mahadran min mahadran. So people light mahadran min mahadran on the kitchen table next to non-kosher food. Most Americans are lighting mahadran min mahadran with Wonder Bread on the same kitchen table as the Hanukkah, which is really fascinating. We'll see why. Why is Hanukkah? I mean, it's a funny thing. They might be sitting at a Pesach Seder, those same people. Their matzah is probably not matzah. Their wine, who knows whether it's kosher. The food is probably not kosher, right? I mean, the Pesach Seder, Baruch Hashem, they're sitting at a Pesach Seder, and the one thing they are doing that's probably done, is Sipri Yitzis Mitzrayim. That they're probably doing, right? Are they eating matzah? It could be. Look, the machine matzah, you can be yetz the mitzvah with machine matzah, but hopefully it's kosher machine matzah. But it's hard to find non-kosher machine matzah. Who makes matzah, right? Okay, so Manischewitz matzah, so it's probably okay, right? And the wine, I don't know. So a lot of those so-called Jewish wine, Magen David wine, I don't know. Is that kosher? It might be. I don't know. It might be. It might be. But hopefully the Jews got a little smarter and figured out that there are wines in the kosher section that actually taste good. I don't know. I mean the Manischewitz syrup that we all grew up making kiddush on it. Right? It was just terrible, that stuff. But it turned generations off Judaism. But it is so Baruch Hashem, Pesach is something that a lot of Jews do still today. Baruch Hashem. In this country, I don't know what the statistic is now, but fairly recently, 15 years ago, the statistic was that well over 70% of the people in the country don't eat chametz in Pesach. Right? Now, 50% of the country is Sfardim. So Sfardim are just frum. They're just frum it's hara. Right? Even the Sfardim that aren't so-called frum. Right? They're just frum. They're all frum. Right? Ashkenazim, have just lost it. Right? The Sfardim lost it because they came here. Right? So it's relatively new. The Ashkenazim lost it a long time ago. So the Ashkenazim are a little different. When you go on Mivtzoyim, it's to get the Ashkenazim to put on tefillin is sometimes a battle. The Sfardim, it's not such a battle. I remember Hanukkah in an army base, going to a table full of soldiers and giving them all sufganiyot, and saying, "Okay, Chaver, we have to make a bracha." So two of them gave back the sufganiyot. We'll make a bracha. So everybody else started laughing at them. Kibbutznikim and lo yodim shum davar, kimat lo yodim elu. They're yelling out. They don't know anything. They're almost not Jewish. They're all making fun of them.
They really didn't want to make a bracha.
They wouldn't make a bracha. So I say, take it. Don't make it. Keep your. But everybody else was making fun of them. Because Baruch Hashem, you didn't make a bracha. It's a big deal. You make a bracha. No one has such an issue about making a bracha. Right? Remember once giving to an officer, they said, "Ta mevarech acharai." So he said, "Ani lo mevarech." He said, "Lama lo? Ani goy." He was a Druzi. He was a big officer. He had all sorts of stuff on here. He was a Druzi. The soldiers around him were laughing when I asked the question. Right? So there was something going on. I didn't know what it was. It was all happening fast. I didn't pick it up. Right? So I said, "Lama lo? Money guy." I said, "Okay, don't just take the soup. Give me back that sufkini, you." Right? So mahadran min mahadran. Everybody does it mahadran min mahadran. Tanu Rabbanan, mitzvahs ne'er Chanukah. Beis Shammai ermim yem rishon madlik shmeinim mikan beilach peches ve'elach. The first day you light 8. From then on you diminish. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Beis Hillel says, Yom Rishon Madlik Achas, Mikan Beilach Meisaf Beilach. You light 1, and from then on you go up continuously. Now, obviously, we pass it like Beis Hillel, and everybody knows that. Oh, so the Gemara brings 2 different reasons for Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel. The Rebbe only quotes one of them, because that's the one we're going to deal with. Time of Beis Shammai, Keneged Parei Achag. The reason Beis Shammai lights 8 through 1 is because on Sukkot, the parim right? Male cows called bulls, right? So the male cows that were brought in diminishing order: 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7. 70 parim, keneged the 70 umay sa'olam, the 70 nations of the world. And very interesting, we'll see this later in the Maimer. On one hand, the whole Indian of bringing diminishing orders to diminish the power of the non-Jews over us. Mitzad Sheni, they're an integral part of the Avodah Sukkos. They're in the Beis Hamikdash. They're part of the Kedusha. Right? So there's this interesting dichotomy relative to those korbanos. Right? So, Beis Shammai learns how to light Hanukkah licht by the bulls brought on the Mizbeach during Sukkot. Now, the Rabbi is going to ask the obvious question: what in the world is the connection of those two things? Right? Okay, we'll ask that relatively quickly. Utaimi the Beis Hillel, and the reason the Beis Hillel in the Gemara and Shabbos, the Mailin b'Kodesh. You go up in matters of kedusha. You don't go down in kedusha. You go up in kedusha. Okay. Before the Rebbe starts asking questions about this, so he first brings he asks one question, then brings the Tzemach Tzedek to support that question. We know in Torah or in the Drushim of Chanukah, which are in Parshas Miketz, so the Alter Rebbe asks a rather obvious question: Ma inyan ner Chanukah leparei Chag? What in the world is the connection between Neres Chanukah and the cows brought on the Mizbeach in Sukkot? I mean, why in the world would I look there to know how to celebrate Chanukah? Ubefrat, and that question is even more powerful, because you might say, well, it's only Beis Shammai anyway, and we don't paskin like Beis Shammai, so why even worry? Well, now, obviously we want to understand Beis Shammai's position also, because Beis Shammai is Beis Shammai. But you could say, I'm not going to spend so much time trying to understand Beis Shammai, because it's not how we paskin. We paskin like Beis Hillel. We go 1 through 8, and Beis Hillel doesn't make a connection to Sukkot. And Mailin b'Kodesh, that's an idea I understand. But the Tzemach Tzedek points out that it is a simple pshat in the Gemara, if you learn the Gemara carefully. Right? You just learn the Gemara, right? If you look at it carefully, what conclusion do you come to? Well, what the Tzemach Tzedek says. Ubefrat lafi mashikosav kreidish admar Tzemach Tzedek shekam Beis Hillel lei pligi. Beis Hillel doesn't argue with Beis Shammai that it's reasonable to learn how to light the menorah from what happened on the Mizbeach Sukkos. He agrees with that. He just says there happens to be an overriding principle called Mailin b'Kodesh. Right? He doesn't have another reason. He just says, well, there's an overriding principle that is mafatel that reason. You're right, really, that is a good idea. That's a very good idea, but it happens to be that we hold Mailin b'Kodesh. So you can't go 8 to 1, you go 1 through 8. But if we're not for Mailin b'Kodesh, we go 8 through 1 because the parei Chag. So what in the world is the connection between the two? So that's the first question. The Rebbe is going to ask basically 5 questions. Okay? You could say it's 4, but you'll see you can also say it's 5 very, very simply. Okay, so it's 5 questions. The reason I always say 5 is because Atat Tetzava has 5 questions. So this Maimer has 5 questions. It's easier to remember. If you have a feeble brain, you have to find anything you can to help you remember things. There's 5 questions here. First question: Ma'in ner Chanukah leparei Chag? What's the connection between Chanukah and Sukkot? Why would I learn one from the other? All right. Oh, so now the Rebbe is going to give an answer to that question. He's going to ask a question on that answer. And that which is explained in a number of places, and it's even explained in a number of places in Chabad Chassidus, but it's also explained in Chassidus in general. Because obviously everybody has to ask this question, because this Gemara is this Gemara, and so if you want to understand something about Chanukah, you have to understand something about its connection to Sukkot. The relevance of Chanukah to Sukkot, who? They're both 8 days. Now, Sukkot is only 8th day with Shmini Atzeres Pesach, but it's an 8-day holiday. It's Yontif at the beginning, Yontif at the end. Chanukah is also 8 days. But in Shin of Chanukah is also 8 days. That's really 7 and 1, just like Sukkot. Why? If you're in Gemara class, you're not allowed to answer because we already dealt with it. We said Pshat in the Gemara. What's a question that is a basic question that can be asked in Hanukkah?
Well, first day of oil wasn't necessarily a miracle. Had enough for one day.
Beautiful, right? Simple Pshat. First day wasn't a miracle. Why was it a miracle? There was enough oil for a day. Right? So there's three basic shittas in Rishonim that answer that question. The Rambam says the first day is to celebrate the victory in the war. Right? There's this tension. What are we celebrating, right? If you look in the Gemara, it's all about the Chanukiah. If you look in Al Nisim, it's all about the war. The Gemara doesn't even mention the war. It says when we won the war, this is what happened. What war? It doesn't even mention anything. It just says when we beat the Greeks. So this, what Greeks? What's the story of Hanukkah? And it doesn't even tell the story of Hanukkah. Right? It just tells the story of the miracle of the oil. Right. So the Rambam says that there's the miracle of winning the war. Right? The Meiri says that there was the miracle of finding the Pach Shemen, that we celebrate that miracle. And the Ritva says that they lit an eighth of the oil every day, knowing that it had the last 8 days before they were going to get new oil. So they only lit an eighth of it every day, and that burned all night. So there was a miracle every day with the oil. Right? The Rabbi has an amazing sikha about Hanukkah. It really is an amazing sikha. The Rabbi takes issue with all of the different shittas. Simple pshat, according to the Rambam, according to the Meiri, simple pshat. What happened? They filled up the butt. Now, when this Pach Shemen, it is important to say this, right? We said it in Gemara class, so I apologize, but the Pach Shemen, it wasn't this little vial of oil, right? It was under the couch. It was enough oil to fill up 7 bulbs that big. It was, a little barrel of oil. So the fact that the Greeks didn't defile it is also quite astounding. Rabbi will explain that about Kifi. So according to the position, the basic position, so you'd think they filled it up the first day, it all burnt, and then what happened? What was the miracle? What do you assume happened?
Refilled.
Yeah, just refilled. The next day they went, well, it's full of oil. Right? A simple shot. What else happened? Right? They didn't find another barrel every day. That isn't what happened, right? It just filled up miraculously. So the Rabbi actually asks the Shaila, well, you're not allowed to light the menorah on miracle oil. You have to light the menorah on Shemen Zayers, crushed olive oil. So that's not lighting the menorah. And that's the Rebbe's problem with the Ritva also. According to the Ritva, they weren't Mekayim the mitzvah for 8 days. They were only Zecher. Which was maybe that's what happened. Fine. But how could they have been Mekayim the mitzvah 8 days? So the Rebbe has an amazing shot that I think it's in Chelik Chaf. It's Chaf or Tesvav. No, I don't remember. That the Rebbe says that they filled it up the first day. It burnt all night, but it was still full. It all burnt, but it didn't burn, like the snake. So it was olive oil every night, same olive oil, right? But it burned all day, burned all night, but didn't disappear. So that was the truth. Is then you can be Mekayim the mitzvah with it, because the Rebbe it's such a Rebbe question to ask that. Wait a minute, then it's miracle oil. It's not Shemen Zayas, so you can't be Mekayim the mitzvah. Says
I don't
it is
recall
so
that.
the Rebbe that question, right? Like the Alter Rebbe with the boat, not wanting to do the mitzvah of Kiddush Levana based on him stopping the boat miraculously, but rather that the guy rowing the boat stopped. So there's this basic connection of an 8-day holiday to an 8-day holiday. One could say that, but the Rebbe is about to ask a second question relative to that. And this is really interesting because this is a question that would, I'm not flying a flag, I'm just so people understand the difference between general Chassidus and Chabad Chassidus. General Chassidus, you'll open up the Sefer and we'll say they're both 8-day holidays, and that's why you learn from Hanukkah to Sukkot. They're both 8-day holidays, and that's why you learn from Hanukkah to Sukkot, and whatever. Oh. And so people might go, psh. They like to do that. Psh. Right? Gematrias, everybody hears a gematria. Psh. Gematrias make air leak from people. I don't think they quite understood this. But, psh. So okay, but what happens in Chabad Chassidus that makes it an 8-page journey instead of 5 lines is the following. That's why people don't like learning Chabad Chassidus, because what they want is a vort for the Shabbos table. Well, you're going to sit down for an hour and have to learn a sikha if you want a vort at the Shabbos table. Whereas you learn a Sfas Emes, it's 8 lines. It's beautiful, and it's beautiful. It's all based on the Alter Rabbi. He says everything's based on Torah and the Likutei Torah. It's beautiful stuff. And it's faster. So the Rabbi says, they're both 8 days. And what's that? The Mispar Shmeina. This will also be in Chassidut Klalit. The Mispar Shmeina Murder al Bechina Shalamayla Mishtalshalus. And 8 is a level beyond the natural order being 7, and 8 is the level beyond that. So the Rabbi asks the question that, and again, honestly, I'm not flying the flag. It's just you have to know the difference between Chabad Chassidus and everything else. This next 4 words are the difference. There's a Harizeh Gufa Tzarech Bir. This itself requires explanation. Ma'u Kesher to Sukkos v'Chanukah lebechinu shelamayla mishtalshalus. What's the connection of Sukkos and Chanukah to this 8th level? Yes, they're both 8, but why? That question is asked in Chabad Chassidus. Is not going to be asked in. That doesn't mean that the Sfas Emes didn't understand the answer to the question, but he didn't. That isn't what he talked about, right? It's only in Chabad Chassidus that the Rebbe who's explaining it is going to ask that question. Why are they both 8? Oh, now I'm going to have to think it's going to take a while to explain this. That's just this line is a fairly succinct expression of the difference between Peilish Chassidus and Chabad Chassidus. And I mean, it's not better or worse. It's completely different. So that's the second question. Why are they both 8? Right? Meaning we asked, what's the connection? Then we answered that question. Oh, because they're both 8. Well, why are they both 8? Right? What's that? Such that they're both, what is it that they both express this idea of Lamayla Miseder Ishtalshlos such that they're both 8 days? V'gam, Harizeh shetiknu neres, this is question 3. Zeh shetiknu neres Chanukah, that which it was established to light Chanukah licht. This was because of a miracle that happened in the Neres of the Mikdash, right? That's what happened. It was in the beis of Mikdash with the menorah. Oh, and since the menorah in the beis of Mikdash had 7 candles, why are there 8? I mean, this isn't the same question we just asked. I understand it's an 8-day holiday for whatever reason. Okay, but why am I celebrating a miracle that happened in a 7-branch menorah with an 8-branch Chanukiah? And that's why it's interesting, in modern Hebrew it's called a Chanukiah, not a menorah. Why? Well, because there's a difference between a Chanukiah and a menorah. The menorah has 7 branches. A Chanukiah has 8. So why don't we have a 7-branch menorah? And we could figure out how to do it, in terms of being Mekayim the mitzvah. It wouldn't be such a hard thing, right? One night we'd eat sukkah miyot, and that's all we do. That in itself would be a miracle that we're alive the next day to light the Hanukkah lamp on the 2nd day. Right? There's a beautiful mimer you should know. I think it's in Chelik Daled of my melukat. This is Chelik beis. This mimer. Chelik beis. This is a mimer that came to us. Tafshin Mem Tes. So in Chelik Daled, there's Tafshin Mem Zayin. Mem Zayin Ches. In Chelik Daled, there's a beautiful mimer Vata Barach Mecha Rabbi, and the Rabbi explains the significance of Chaf Daled, Chaf Hey, and Chaf Vav. Right, because Chaf Daled is the day the war ended. So there's a miracle of Chaf Daled. There's a miracle of Chaf Hey, just finding the Pach Shemen. And there's the miracle of Chaf Vav, which is the first day of miracle with the candles, in simple pshat. Right, so what's Chaf Daled, what's Chaf Hey, what's Chaf Vav? Chaf Vav, of course, is Shem Yud Kei Vavke. Right? Chaf Hey is the amount of letters in Baruch Shem Fred Malchum Seliel. But it's a fascinating mimer. It's a mimer if you have nothing to do over Hanukkah. has to do with, all the different aspects of the holiday and the miracles. Okay. So why are we celebrating a miracle of a 7-branch menorah with an 8-branch menorah? That's the third question. V'gam tzarich lahavin. Now the Rabbi is going to ask the question relative to Sukkos in a more detailed fashion. It's not just that we're comparing Sukkos, Hanukkah to Sukkos. We're learning how to celebrate a miracle that happened with the menorah from something that happened on the Mizbeach, which are two completely different kelim in the beis Hamikdash. They have nothing to do with each other. As a matter of fact, they represent two completely different aspects of reality and avodah, as we'll see. V'gam tzarich lahavin ma shafer gleich, the comparison, hashva, the neres Chanukah, who loy l'chag Sukkos b'klal, is not to the holiday of Sukkos in general, elo l'parei chag dafka, to the cows. The l'cha'ura, harei neres Chanukah shayachim l'menorah. Neres Chanukah is shayach to the menorah. And what's the menorah? Let's see, the menorah is in the Rabbi will say in a couple of lines. Neres Chanukah hem mipnei hanei shayach b'neres menorah, right? Obviously. It's regarding the miracle that happened with the candles of the menorah. Uparei achag, and these cows, hikrivu, they were sacrificed, kol karbanos, like all the karbanos, agabe mizbeach, on the altar. They're two different vessels in the beis Hamikdash that actually represent, and that's what Rabbi is about to say parenthetically, two completely different aspects of reality. One is all about ruchnius, or the other is all about gashmius, blood, literally, blood and bones. Right? It says gashmi as you can get the mizbeach. So the mizbeach is malchus, and the menorah is chokhmah. So what have they got to do with each other? Ubafrat l'fiyim mavur b'kabbalah b'chassidus. That the menorah is all about chokhmah, shemen, or ruchnius, the light emanating from the beis Hamikdash to the rest of the world. The mizbeach, it's all about base physical reality, literally blood and guts. That's what it is, right? So, what do those have to do with each other? V'neres v'karbanos, lighting the menorah, and karbanos, avodas shenis, two completely different avodas. Va'ad sheshelcha, to such an extent that even Chazal talk about this based on a conversation between Moshe and Aaron. Let's see the conversation, and then we'll explain it. Va'ad sheshelcha, until to such an extent are they different that Moshe says to Aaron, yours, which is Neres, Kohanim, Gedei l'mishalahem, is greater than theirs, which is the Karbonos. Well, what do you mean? The Karbonos is also the Kohanim, so we'll talk about that in a second. And what's greater about the Neres relative to Karbonos? Einam b'telim le'elam, that they're not bottled forever. So now, that's a famous conversation between Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron HaKohen. When? Chanukah Mizbeach. Right? Chanukah is the first 12 days of Nisan in the year 2449. So what did we do? Each of the Shvatim brought Korbanos, right? At the end of Parshas Nasai, right? The 12 different groups of Korbanos, all exactly the same, in order to commemorate the Mizbeach. Now, who was left out? Shevet Levi and the Kohanim. Were not there. They didn't bring Korbanos. What's the next parsha in the Torah after Parshas Nasai? Baloischa. Thank you. You saved us. Right? Baloischa. Right? What's Baloischa? Talking about lighting the menorah. Now it's interesting. That's the beginning of the next parsha. The rest of the parsha doesn't talk about the menorah at all. Right? It starts all the stories of the Midbar that are just us blowing it here and blowing it here and blowing it here and blowing it here. Right? Okay. But the beginning of the next parsha is Baloischa Saneres. Oh, so that's Moshe's answer to Aaron. Aaron comes to Moshe and says, put it in the vernacular, Zelo fair. It's not fair. Why are we left out of this beautiful event of the commemorating of the Mizbeach, the inauguration of the Mizbeach? Why are we left out? And what does Moshe answer? Shelcha, yours, the Neres, is greater than theirs, the Karbonos. And the next thing he hears about is lighting the menorah. Right? Why is yours greater than theirs? Because even when theirs, The Mizbeach is going to be bottled because the Bati Mikdashos are going to be destroyed. We're still going to light candles throughout all of Gullus. We're going to light the candles of the menorah, Hanukkah. So that's what Moshe says to Aaron. Your neris will never be bottled. The miracle in the time of the end of the time of the second temple, it resulted in the fact that the menorah is lit forever. The light of the menorah every year, we light Hanukkah menorah. Right? So that is Moshe Rabbeinu consoling Aaron relative to the menorah. Oh, so what do we see? The neris are very different than the karbanos. Completely different levels of avodah. That Moshe says yours is much greater than theirs. So how do we learn how to light the menorah from the karbanos? They're two different avodas. That's question 4. Rabbi asks. Yeah. Question 5. V'gam tzarich lahavin ma shemitzvasa shel neres Chanukah. To understand why it is that the mitzvah of Ner Chanukah, he mishatishka chama, is sunset. 2 different shitas as to when we light licht, right? Do we light at sunset, which is what we do, or do you light at tzeis? Right? Meaning first you daven marv and then you light. Okay, so which do you do? So we light at sunset. Now, if you light later than sunset, you should daven marv first, right? But meaning, if you light after tzeis, right, for whatever reason, you came home from Mitzrayim late or whatever, right, came home from work late, right, so then you lit at 7 o'clock at night, so you should daven marv first. But we don't daven marv first. Adarabah, we're very makpid to light at shkia. It's very hard to light at shkia. So that's very interesting because when were the naders lit in the beis of Mikdash? Plug a mincha. An hour and a quarter before Shkia. So wouldn't it be reasonable to commemorate the mitzvah, the miracle that happened with the menorah by lighting our menorah at the same time that we lit the menorah in the beis of Mikdash, right? That would be the most reasonable thing to do. We're commemorating the menorah, so we'll light the menorah when they lit the menorah. When was that? Plug mincha. Okay, so now plug mincha means half of mincha, but there's 2 minchas. There's mincha deila, mincha ketana. Mincha deila starts approximately, a little bit after, but approximately chatzos hayom, midday. So midday till sunset. Okay, and what's plug? The middle of that. Right? Plug means half, right? Okay, but then there's mincha ketana. Mincha ketana is from that plug until sunset. So that has its own plug. That's about an hour and a quarter, between an hour and a quarter and an hour and a half before sunset. Okay, so that's the plug of mincha. There's mincha g'dayla and mincha ketana. Okay, there are shittas that say you're not allowed to daven mincha until mincha ketana. Right? Generally, we don't paskin that way. All sorts of people daven mincha at 12:30, 1 o'clock. Right? We have to wait about a half an hour after chatzos hayom to be sure. Right? Whenever chatzos is. Chatzos is usually 11:45. I mean, obviously we're talking midday clock, right? 11:45-ish. So you should wait until 12:15. That's about the earliest. But generally, the earliest mincha you'll find will be 12:30. Rabbi Groner had a minyan for mincha in 770 for years and years at 12:30. Or if you want to find Rabbi Groner after Gimel Tammuz, you want to find Rabbi Groner during the day. So the first mincha in the back, the library at the back of 770 all the way. So that there was a minyan for mincha in there. Rabbi Groner was always in there.
So that would have been, that was plug of mincha?
That was mincha. That wasn't even plug. That was mincha gedayla. That was the first time you could do it. Right. Actually, we used to have a student here named Ben Schechter. Ben, the year he was saying Kaddish for his father, was also davening at that time, but someone had a chiyuv in Rabbi Groner's minyan, so he had a minyan outside. And there were 2 minyanim at 770 at like 12:30 in the afternoon. If you wanted to find Rabbi Groner, he was always in that minyan. And if I used to go to visit him, and it was, I walked in at 12:15, so I knew I had 10 minutes, because at 12:25 he was out the door. He went to that minyan always every day. I don't know why, but he was always in that minyan. All right. Obviously after Gimel Tammuz, before Gimel Tammuz is done 3:15 with the Rebbe. So let's figure out the last question. We just did, but we'll see it inside. So the time of the mitzvah of Ner Chanukah is Mishat Chama. It's sunset. That's when we light. Diyadua diyak b'zeh. So no, the Neres Mikdash, the candles in the beis of Mikdash, hidlika mi plaga mincha. They were lit at plaga mincha. which is, the Rabbi says, Sha'ar Raviyah Kedem Shkia, which is approximately an hour and a quarter before Shkia. The Kaven did Neres Chanukah, and since Neres Chanukah Haim, they are canal, as we said earlier, Mipnei Haneis, because of the miracle Shaya b'Neres HaMikdash that was with the Neres HaMikdash. Ubefrat, and particularly Shekol the Tikkun Rabbanan, everything that the Rabbanan established Ke'ein D'Oraisa Tikkun, they established it along the Raisa lines. The Rebbe is throwing out a basic halachic line. Whenever the Chachamim made a halacha or established a mitzvah or whatever it happened to be, they would look for a prototype in the Torah to learn how to do that particular mitzvah. Right? So the obvious case here would be, there is a mitzvah deraisa to light a menorah, and that happens at Plug Mincha. So now we're making a mitzvah derabanan to light a menorah. So I'll establish that mitzvah rabbanan along the lines of the mitzvah deraisa. Called the Tikkun Rabbanan, Kein D'Oraisa Tikkun. Where do the Rabbanan look to for the prototype in terms of how to establish certain things that we do? D'Oraisa. Right? So if there's something similar to D'Oraisa, then the new rabbinic halacha will be in line with that. So then why is it that in this case we don't do that? We light later. Right? Hayoroi, therefore, the Rabbi says it would be fitting, l'cha'ura, at first glance, shetir zman l'kasim, that the time of the lighting of Neres Chanukah would be k'Neres HaMikdash, like the candles in the Mikdash. V'lama mitzvosi davka mishatish kacham. Why is it mishatish kacham? Okay, 5 questions. First question.
What's the difference between Ner Hanukkah and Pari Sukkos?
Video. Okay, and the Rabbi asked it generally. Why do we learn Hilchas Chanukah from Sukkos? Right? Parei Chag. Right? We're going to ask it more specifically, menorah from Mikdash, from Mizbeach later. Now it's just, why do we learn Hilchas Chanukah from Chag Sukkos? Second question, because they're both 8. Then we ask the question, why are they both 8? What is it about them that they're both L'mayla Mina Ishtalshalos? Second question. Third question,
why do we light 8 when the menorah in the basement?
Beautiful. Why is the Chanukiah 8 candles when the menorah in the basement this was 7 candles? We're commemorating a miracle that happened with a menorah of 7 branches, so why do we have a menorah of 8 branches? That was the third question. Fourth question was the more specific question relative to Sukkot and Chanukah. Not so much Sukkot and Chanukah in general, but more specifically, why do we learn how to commemorate a miracle with the menorah from what happened on the Mizbeach? They're 2 completely different avodas. That's question 4. Question 5. Why do we learn how to commemorate a miracle that happened with the menorah from what happened on the Mizbeach? They're 2 completely different kelim, 2 completely different expressions of kedusha. One's malchus, one's chachma. What do we got to do with each other? They're both holy, but one is spiritual holiness and the other is physical holiness.
Yeah.
So, seems like a funny marriage. Okay. And the 5th question, 1 word. Time. Okay, those are the 5 questions. We have 5 minutes, let's start the answers. Nekudas abir b'zeh. Okay, now the Rabbi's going to, very, very often, in the Rabbi's my mind, we're going to have first Nekudas abir. This is the basic answer. And then you'll see the words that you see in Gimel on the same page. You can look on this second column, ubir. This is the basic shot. Now let's explain all that. What does that really mean? Okay, now it might be b'avodah, or it might be just in general. In our case, it's going to be avodah, but it'll also be in general. Nekudas abir b'zeh, the basic explanation. And we're going to answer the last question first. The basic idea of Neres Chanukah is to illuminate the dark. That's what Neres Chanukah are all about. Therefore, what question did we just answer?
Why we light Shkia?
Why do we light at Shkia? Why do we light when it's light out? No, because the whole inyan in Neres Chanukah is illuminate the dark. And Neres Chanukah are dafka the Neres of Golus, to illuminate the darkness of Golus. That's what Neres Chanukah are all about. Din Yonim Neres Chanukah la'aretz chayshach. Dehine, hanes the Chanukah hayu la'achre shenichnesu yavonim leheichol The Nes of Hanukkah was after. That's interesting. There's going to be two different Nisim in Hanukkah, but the Nes that Shayach to the menorah, specifically, is after the Nes of the Milchama, and the Rebbe's not going to mention that Nes right now. It's going to the second miracle, because very, very interesting. After we won the war, and we were Matar, the Beis HaMikdash, we needed another miracle to be able to light the menorah. Which is really interesting, right? There was a miracle. We won the war. Therefore, we were able to go into the Beis HaMikdash and be Matar the Beis HaMikdash after the Greeks had been Matameh the Beis HaMikdash. But the tumah that the Greeks had brought about evidently had two levels. There was the tumah the Greeks brought about in the Heichel. That we were Matar. There was also the tumah that the Greeks brought about in the Shmanim Shebeheichel, which is what it says in the Gemara. It doesn't just say they were Matameh the Heichel. They were Matameh Shmanim Shebeheichel. They were also Matameh the Heichel. Which itself is quite something, as the Rabbi is going to point out. But our emphasis when we say, in the Gemara, the emphasis is Shmanim Shebeheichel. Oh, there's an even higher level. And that, interestingly enough, required an extra miracle. The miracle of the Pach Shem. It's really interesting, the whole story. Dine, a Nes to Hanukkah, relative to the menorah, Haya la'achrei shenichnesu Yavanim la'eichel v'timu kol ha'shemanim shebeichel. That's what it says in the Gemara. She's gabrus ha'choshech, the overcoming of the darkness, the Yavanim. Yavanim, force of darkness. Haisa ad kerei kach. I'm sorry. The power of the choshech of the Yavanim. I'm sorry, was so powerful. Haisa ad kerei kach. Not only were they able to enter into the Heichel and be Matameh the Heichel, that their power of darkness was so powerful that it could be Matameh the Kedusha of the Heichel, which is an incredibly powerful level of Kedusha. Ella, not only that, Shetimu Games Akola Shemanim Shebeichel. They are believing to be Matameh a higher level, the Shemen Shebeichel. What does that mean? The Shemen, what Shemen represent? Ubechinas Kodesh. Shemen represents Kedusha, a higher level of Kedusha. Commercial cost of Shemen Mishchas Kodesh. Shemen, which is that which anoints for holiness. Right? When you want to elevate someone from one state to another state, what do? You anoint them with oil. Kohen Gadol is anointed with oil.
Right? They have,
I think they do it
in
too.
King England.
Oh yeah, they do it with oil?
They did this thing with him. They take oil from the Mount of Olives. I don't know what they did with
Oh, yeah?
these. I don't know.
Yeah, and they anoint them with something? Why? Probably that's mitzvah being the king or being the head of the church.
Yeah,
Right.
probably the whole thing.
Yeah, the whole thing. Okay. Yeah. No, they're the best at it. I mean, like the pageantry, you want to see some pageantry, the Brits are the best at it. They got it down pat. Well, they've been doing it for a long time. So what's that? The Shemen hu b'chinas kodesh, k'mesh kal Shem mishchas kodesh, Melech HaMashiach. What does that mean in Pshat? The anointed king, right? That's what it means. The king was anointed with oil. He's loftier than everybody. He's transcendent of everybody else by virtue of that anointing. Kodesh, Mila Begarmi. Kodesh is something unto itself. That's quoting the Zohar. Kodesh is what does Kodesh mean? Transcendent reality. Okay, so it's often translated in English as holy. Okay, say that, but what does holy mean? Transcendent. When you say Kodesh, 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 what do you mean? What does that mean? What are those three levels of Kedusha? Oh, I do not ask annoying questions. It's true. We don't say it very often. It's not something we say very often. Only, 2, 3, 4 times a day. So I don't want anybody to, it only comes up every, 3 months. Right? Now, in all fairness, we're all the same, though. I'm just picking on you, right? It's nice to pick on people about the problem that you also have. Right? You say these words, you don't know what it means. Okay, but this one we do know what it means. Why? Well, if you pay attention to probably the third time you've said it in the day, you said it in Shabbos, you said it in Chazar Shatz, Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. Then when's the third time you say it?
I thought
Uvalat
Shabbos
Tziyun.
is the third time. You say it also during Birkus Krish.
Krishma Kedusha.
Yeah,
So
Birchas
Krishma's the
Krishma,
first time.
then Kedusha, that's the second time. Why is that, right? And then the third,
Yeah, we're good.
the third time is Uvalat Tziyun.
Yeah.
So in Uvalat Tziyun, you translate it into Aramaic.
Right.
And that explains what you're saying Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh about. What are you saying? Time and two levels of space, Eretz and Shemayim. You're beyond time and beyond physical reality and beyond spiritual reality. Beyond Eretz and beyond Shemayim. That's what you're saying. So you're looking, that the Aramaic in Uvalat Tziyun is explaining the three levels of Kedusha in Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. Okay. So what does that mean? Transcendent, transcendent, transcendent. The word Kadosh means transcendent. You're transcendent of time, transcendent of space. Physical space and metaphysical space. Yeah? About an hour and 10 minutes. Notice when you say about today, you'll see that it's there. All right? Let's go one more minute. All right? So that's the Indian of Kedusha. So what do we learn from that? The mizem move on from this understood the power of the Greeks was so powerful. The power of Tuma was so powerful that not only were they metama the Heichel, which itself is an incredibly powerful level of Kedusha. It's the 9th level of Kedusha in the Beis Hamikdash. You go up when you enter from the east and you go towards the west, you go up in Kedusha until you hit the 9th level, which is Heichel, which is Kodesh, and then the 10th level is Kodesh HaKadoshim. But they were metama the Shemen Shebeichel, a level that's transcendent even of the Heichel. The mizem movement is it's relevant in this detail even more than the fact as horrible as it is that they were metama the Heichel, it's even more horrid that they were able to be metama something beyond Heichel, the Shemen Shebeichel, a level beyond Heichel. No, I'm sorry, we missed the line. Kodesh Mila Bagarme. Bedugmas Hashem in the parentheses, I'm sorry. Bedugmas Hashem and Shetzaf al Gavei Kol Mashkin. Right? Shemen, also physical Shemen, floats on all other liquids. It doesn't mix with them. Right? You mix up the oil and the vinegar in the salad, right? So you shake it up and you pour it on your salad fast, right? Because if you put it down, what's going to happen? Shemen is going to separate again. Because that's Shemen. Shemen is transcendent of everything else. Okay, so that's in Gashmi, so too in Ruchnias. So the Greeks came, and not only they were metama the Heichel, Avshe Kedusha Heichel He Dargan Nailis Beser Kedushas, even though the transcendence, the holiness of the Heichel is a very high level of the 10 levels of Kedusha, it's the 9th of those 10. Right? Look at footnote 22. Rak Darga Achas Lamata Mi Darga Sa Kedusha the Kedusha Kedoshim. Only one level below the Kedusha of the Kodesh HaKadoshim. It's obviously the highest level. And yet, the Greeks had such incredible power of Tuma that they were able to be Matame, the Shemen Shebeichel. Not just Heichel, but the Shemen Shebeichel. In Ois Hey, the Rebbe is going to explain in 6-line Ois, short little Ois, what that means in Kedusha, what that means in Avodah, what that really means. What were they able to do? What do they try to do? It's absolutely amazing. And let's just see what the Rebbe says here, and then we'll stop. How do we see that this level of Tuma is very powerful? So this is also understood, is proven by that even after your children came, we're just quoting Alanisa, and they were matar your mikdash. Hine, in order, behold, in order to light the menorah, they needed another nace, meaning 2, right? Maskil beginning, we'll come back to this Sunday morning, but let's just see it quickly here. Beginning with the nace of finding the Pach Shemen, we won't explain the next line, just want you to see it. that's sealed with the seal of the Kohen Gadol, and that represents Or Ein Sof Shelamayla Mishtalshus, an incredibly powerful level of light. Shelagabe Or Zeh Gam Choshech Lo Yachshich, relative to this light, darkness does not darken. We'll come back to all this. Adrabah Or Zeh Meir Es HaChoshech, this light illuminates darkness. Shegam HaChoshech Yar, that even the darkness will illuminate. Vahavaya, and the Vaya, but the Sef is Vav, with an extra Vav, Yagir Choshki, and the Vaya, level beyond the Vaya, that will illuminate my dark. Okay, so in addition to that, we also needed, so in addition to the miracle of the war and the Tiaras Mikdashah, we needed another miracle in order to light the Hanukkah light. So we see that the miracle of the Shemin is transcendent of even the other miracles. Okay, and that's Shemin Shebeichel, but we'll see what Shemin Shebeichel is in Aveda in the next page. Okay, so we're understanding the union of the miracle with the menorah. We'll go over those last 3 lines again tomorrow, Sunday.